I like this camera, it's only me. Welcome to a special episode of finding new cards and assessing how great they are people have never seen before. It's Spectral Chaos time! So, well, there's a set and it's basically very new, it was never printed. What does it do?
Yeah, well, Barry Reich, one of the early designers of Magic and one of the first two people to play a game of Magic, because it takes two to tango, designed a set at the time. Richard Garfield gave a lot of his early designer friends sets. He was like, you got freedom to go create a set. We just built Alpha, we're working on this, you go create a set. And a lot of the early sets were made this way. So at the same time that Ice Age and Alliances was being built, Barry Reich was working on a set called Spectral Chaos. And at the time, he had all these costs. They went through 4 rounds of playtesting. It was ready to be printed. They didn't have the art yet. But they're like, oh, Legends just came out. It had multicolored cards. Players are not going to like more multicolored cards. Try it on your own? No way.
Yeah, no.
long time since then.
That's a concept that just never catches on.
So they're like, you know what? We'll wait before releasing Spectral Chaos. It'll be in the future. During that time, they kept on taking snippets of cards or mechanics from Spectral Chaos, cannibalizing it until they are at a point where there's like, no point, we're not going to release any more cards.
So we might see some familiar faces today?
We will.
Some of those mechanics and cards look awfully like distinct.
Yeah, but before we get into that, let me remind you of a special feature on Cardmarket, which is called Two-Factor Authentication. What is Two-Factor Authentication, you may ask? Well, we've hired a scientist to explain what Two-Factor Authentication is.
You're in trouble.
Anyways, I'm not a scientist. I'm sorry, that was a joke. But I can still explain that to you. It's basically just a feature where if you log into Cardmarket or do something important on Cardmarket, it asks you for a code that's only available on your phone or any other device you set it up on, which prevents hackers or people who sniped your password somehow, I don't know, looked at your keyboard, from doing anything bad without your consent. So to set it up, simply head to the security tab of your Cardmarket account, and personally I have it enabled for the most important actions on my account. It keeps your Cardmarket account safe, and that's kind of what it's there for. But now let's get into the cards.
So wait, no. What's the second best thing you can find in a treasure chest?
A YouTube subscriber?
Wow, that's very
Did you just lock him then
That's
there?
very cruel. Okay. Well, I was going for friendship, and you can be our friends if you click and subscribe the video. Thank you.
It does show us, and our bosses especially, that you appreciate the content we're making, so if you're not, so costs you nothing. All right, what did we find in the booster box?
Many cards. I don't even know what to start with. So I'm going to choose this card. So the card is called Just Shadow. Just Shadow.
That's it.
Not even Death Shadow or anything.
No, it doesn't even have Shadow. So, all right. But there's a famous mechanic tied to it. If Shadow is in your graveyard and you have 2 non-Shadow creatures on top of it, you can just put it into play. And it has haste. So it's 2 mana, 2/2. And like the Shadow concept was, I think in Alpha there was never Shadow. But since then they put many shadows, abilities like this, they jump from your graveyard in play. And I think you've heard of Nether Spirit?
Yeah. It wasn't Modern Horizons, right?
I think it got reprinted, yeah. And back then in Mask, it was so suppressive.
So that was a mask card. So this card was possibly an inspiration for the card. It wasn't a 2 mana 2/2.
In general, they played a lot with the Graveyard Order Matters thing before they ditched that, right?
Yeah, because actually back then you couldn't rearrange your graveyard as you wanted.
Yeah,
because right now, that's why they don't do it anymore. You can just shuffle and move around. But back then it was important.
All right. So that's where we get today's shadows from.
Okay, are you guys ready for a confusing one? I have Terramorph. It's a non-basic land. It's a chaotic land. Barry Reich wanted to create an extra card type, kind of like Tribal, which was chaotic, which didn't really affect the card in most ways. You could target chaotic cards, destroy chaotic cards, but usually it just means that they cause chaos. They're confusing.
So there wasn't any gameplay implication?
There wasn't. You could target them, but no gameplay.
Yeah.
It didn't add any role.
Yeah.
And this one, Terramorph, would add 1 basic mana of the appropriate type to your mana pool. You think, what does that mean? Well, it counts as an island when cast. So it enters the battlefield as an island, but it's non-basic and taps for blue. During your upkeep, the Terramorph must change to a different basic land type which you control. If you do not control a basic land of another type, the Terramorph is destroyed. So the implication is, you need another basic. You have a mountain in play. You play it, and it's just a basic island. And at your upkeep, you must change it to another one. So if all you have is a mountain, if it's an island, you sacrifice it. If it's a mountain, now you have 2 mountains.
So it's like a weird reflecting pool?
Yeah.
but a really clunky.
Yeah, clunky,
Where
slow.
you often end up sacrificing. Imagine they sinkhole you.
It's weird how, in alpha we have dual lands. Straight up, 2 colors, no downside, and then we get this. Alright, I've got a card titled Archangel, which I picked because it heavily reminds me of another card that everyone knows. It's 7 mana, 4 of which are colorless, and then 3 white, so you've got to be pretty deep in white there. It's an Archangel, it has flying, vigilance, and is a 5/5. Keep in mind, this was at a time where Archangel was one of the best creatures in the game, right? Impossible to beat. So apparently what they decided was to add 2 mana for +1/+1, because clearly a creature that's better than Archangel has to cost 7 mana.
Has to be the best creature in the game.
So that's how you pay 7 mana for a 5/5 flying vigilance.
You want to know the kicker to it?
Hit
The
me.
card exists. It's called Archangel.
Oh no!
So this is
way.
they were gonna print it, and then later on they're like, you know what? This is still good. So it was printed for the first time in 6th edition.
Yeah.
But it was double white, not triple white.
Double
right?
white, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, they
So-
completely changed
They fixed it, double white. There you go.
All right.
You know it's a good card when Toffel can't stop laughing.
I mean, so the name is Plasma Balls.
Plasma ball.
That's
Plasma
just a
ball.
ligma.
Yeah, coming to you hot.
Late night magic.
It deals 3 damage to 1 target for 1 red.
All right.
But if you pay an additional black, it deals 2 damage to 2 targets. Or you can choose to pay an additional green, so 1 red, green.
Yeah.
It deals 1 damage to 3 targets.
So for 4 mana, you dealt 3 damage.
So either you pay 3 mana to deal 3 damage to 1, or you pay 4 mana. If it's black, you deal 2 to 2.
So it's definitely mostly good at 4.
I mean, okay.
You have
yeah.
to be playing John.
So they basically invented kicker back
Yes,
then.
Yeah.
This is the kicker. A lot of the cards from Spectral Chaos were moved into Invasion, where kicker was done.
And honestly, I mean, you heard it here first. Plasma Balls is the origins of kicker.
I've got one of the first instance of Flash. You had the first instance of Kicker with your plasma balls. The first time they tried to do Flash, what they did was just attack. Contain yourselves, gentlemen.
I'm good.
I've got a card called Rapid Flight. It costs 1 blue. It's an instant enchant creature, and target creature is now a flying creature. You play before the declare defense phase of an attack. So it had a lot of restrictions.
Why would I play this rather than just a regular aura that grants flying?
Because this is surprise
Pre-combat.
flying.
Oh my god, yeah, imagine you could block a Archangel.
It's not that this card is necessarily crazy. It's a combat trick. It's just this is when before Flash was ever invented. They're like
Yeah.
because the whole point is Spectral Chaos. Barry Reich wanted these cards to feel like weird and different and confusing.
Yeah.
So he's like, I want an enchantment, but I want it to act like an instant.
And they actually used this in Visions, where they had enchantments that had flash, and did only something if you played them as an instant for a turn instead of staying around.
Oh yeah, right, you sacrificed them at the end of the turn or something, yeah. Alright, next up, I've got a 7 mana creature. Alright, brace yourself. This is a 7 mana creature. You got a lot of mana
Is it a
going on there.
5/5 flying vigilance?
No, it's not. However, it is a 5/5. Alright, 5/5, solid stat line, but there's gonna be a huge effect on this bad boy, right? It's legendary too.
What do you mean? 7 mana 5/5 is back then it was the nuts.
7 mana, 5/5, 6 and a green, by the way. It's legendary, another downside, huge effect incoming. You may play an additional land on each of your turns.
Because on 7 mana you have to be
There you
extra
go.
land.
You need to get to Ulamog.
So apparently Barry had this plan of playing a deck that needed to go up to like 15 lands or something. So Barry, if you're watching this, what was going on, dude?
Yeah. Yeah, no. I think the world lived without it. Quite fair enough.
Yeah.
Alright, but not with this one, because this one actually did a lot of things. And it's pretty cool. It's called Blessed Land.
All right.
Oh.
Yeah, and it costs white and is an enchant land. And it somehow says the land can't be enchanted by other enchantments for whatever reason. I don't know.
It would be too broken.
Too broken to put 2 blessed lands on the thing. It gave the land
You've gone too far.
indestructible.
All right.
So that's a keyword that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
Also not until Darksteel. And when you tapped it for mana, you add an additional colorless.
Yo.
Oh, wait, is it called indestructible?
Well, it says the land cannot be destroyed.
Okay.
But that's just straight up broken.
So It's like a unkillable Llanowar elf that can't attack for 1, but is indestructible.
And it negates one of the big downsides of mana ramping enchantments.
Yeah.
These days we have Utopia Sprawl, which is like played, but it doesn't make it indestructible. The one downside is, oh, my land could get blown up.
Yeah, so they still had wild growth in alpha, so it wasn't too new, but giving us to white is kind of...
Yeah.
And then there's, like, they actually have one of those enchantments that gives Shroud to the land when you enchant it.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
So, which makes sense, because then you can't destroy the land. But that was, I think, 10, 15 years ahead of its time.
Speaking of one that I don't think he's considerably ahead of his time, buckle up, boys. Because I have a multicolored card, a gold card, High Treason. It's blue and red.
Okay.
Get ready. So it's a chaotic instant, and it is chaotic indeed. It does not put the word to shame. It's you play before defense is chosen. Target attacking creature attacks its controller instead. The controller may block with any non-attacking creatures, but block must be legal. Controller declares defense first. So you can attack me with 2 creatures and 1 stay behind. It could be like, haha, it's my attack phase now, and then make your creature attack you. And if you didn't have an untapped creature to block it,
I love this.
Pretty neat design. Honestly,
It could work, and there's actually a card that reminds me a lot of this, and that's deflecting part. which-
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I see the flavor.
Yeah, and then this is some of the cards that attack your opponent. Like, if you, I mean, that's the extreme scenario. But if they attack you with Phage, you go like, nope, I'm not gonna take that.
Yeah, I love this against Phage. All right, my next one is called Manipulation, and let's stick with the chaotic energy. It's a chaotic sorcery for 1 green, green, blue, blue. So you're investing quite a bunch of mana here. Rearrange any or all creature enchantments in play. Enchantments may only be moved from one creature to another creature controlled by the same player. The new arrangement must be legal.
No.
All right. 5 mana. We're spending 5 mana to move around auras on stuff. Why?
So I'm not quite sure which auras back then existed. You know.
Yeah. Like Barry must have sat there and be like, all right, what's really broken? Like, oh, if I could just move my auras around, that'd be so good. But that can't be too cheap. Like,
No. Imagine you have like a giant strength on a creature and want to move it to another creature.
yeah. Like, at this point, you're spending 5 mana to give like +2/+1 to a different creature.
At least it is successfully chaotic. Like if you've got a lot of enchantments on
Very
in
much.
play, yeah.
Although, given that you decide the order and the arrangement, I feel like there's too much strategy for a chaotic sorcery.
Yeah, you also, if you control magic something, which was actually an alpha, you could only then take your creature.
Oh yeah, nice. Really good.
No,
Anyways,
yeah, I agree with you. Like, there's too much choice for it to be chaotic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I've kind of got a theme here of picking bad cards. Let's see what you got, Toffel.
All right, 2 more to go. I choose the one, this one. It's a very rare. It says.
Yeah.
It's very rare. It's green, and it's called Lifebringer, which costs 3 green. It's a 2/3, and whenever Lifebringer deals damage to another player, you gain 1 life.
So it's a 4 mana.
4 mana,
2/3. Life link. That's just broken.
It's just broken, but it has an ability, and this one actually makes it like pretty good, pretty interesting.
Oh, I thought the ability was gaining
Yeah.
1 life when you...
No. So for 1 black, you can double each life for this turn that you're gaining.
If you have 9 mana, you can do 2 into 4, and then you're 4 into 8, and then you're 8 into 16.
Yeah,
You need 9 mana.
now imagine-
And connected with your 2/3.
Now imagine, right? You have a different creature with giant strength.
Yeah.
And you want to move it. You can move it first,
yeah.
and then it's a 4/5. Then now deal like gets your life, and it's like not only has it life link, which I mean it's
I still don't see why we're talking about this card.
what it has life link, which was used later.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
But also like having a card that makes the card better is very modern design, right? Like on the card printed, your life gain this turn, not from this. Any life
that's
gain
true.
is doubled.
Yeah. So you kind of had.
So it's
like,
Healing Salve, broken.
yeah, it's a little Vitor, you know? It's like it has an effect, and then you
true.
can use it again.
Yeah, like Vito.
So it's really interesting that you mentioned the very rare, because one of the things Barry tried to do is he was a mathematician. So he was really going strong on the different probabilities of things, and one thing he thought, early they thought it'd be really, they didn't expect everyone to just have access to all the cards, so they thought every once in a while you'd run into a rare that no one else had, and you'd be like, whoa, the card's broken, and they're like, you know what, mathematically, we can push this even further, so that there's like every city has like 1 card that people play against this one person with a card, and they're like, what? What does this do? This is mythical, and they talk about it with people. So he invented the mythic rare way before the mythic rares ever existed. These were supposed to only show up every once in a while in the rare slot.
Yeah, also remember back then they tried to hide all of those rarity things. It wasn't obvious in the spoiler. So you wouldn't know how likely your card is. And it quite frequently happened that you met cards you've never seen before. There was also no internet.
And didn't you talk about at some point, Tuffle, how Richard Garfield tried to hide it at some point by putting an island in the rare slot in Alpha Boosters?
Yes, one of the shorts. Still waiting for my t-shirt.
So, in the spirit of mythic cards that you'd only see once in a while, this is one that even today would be a little broken. It's called Great Cat Armand. It's a very rare white card. For 1 white, it's a 3/2 lion.
That would be playable today. We fixed Savannah Lion.
I don't think it'd be playable today. Maybe like some specific aggro decks. It's in white. I didn't even think Death and Taxes would play it. We've got 1 mana 3/3 flyers that put cards in your graveyard.
Yeah, but still, like for that time, it's way ahead. Right?
Sarah Angel, Shmera Angel.
It's like you feed your Savannah Line.
But the point is, you're not. They were supposed to be so rare that you'd be like, you've never heard of this card, and someone play this and be like, wow, this is insane. And think about this experience of having encountered a 1 mana 3/2, and then tell their friends, what you think that for Sarah Angel's crazy? Once they played against a 1 mana 3/2, and they're like, wow.
Next up, I've got a card that I actually want your opinion on. It's a symbol of power, 3 colorless. It's an artifact that says all creatures have +1/-1. And I'd like to know your opinion on the power level of this card going through, Magic. Maybe not today, but would this have been very powerful at some point? Because I feel like as a sideboard card against certain beatdown decks, this would have been broken, giving every color access to this kind of -1 toughness to all creatures on the board.
So it's basically an engineered plague for everything. Like if you name goblins, I think it's like the opponent is screwed.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just a colorless version of that kind of thing.
Or elves.
Isn't that just terribly broken for the time? Maybe not today anymore?
Well, back then, no. Because
it would make the Sarah Angel a 5/4. It gets you in 4 turns.
5/3.
You play against control. Oh yeah.
But then also,
is it legendary? No, legendary didn't exist back then.
Well, no, in this it exists.
In this set it exists, like when they tried to make the fixed dual lands by making them legendary.
Yeah, I think it would have been a good strategy where you can cut your opponent off cards. Yeah. Right? They play like real actual runaway elves and
and suddenly it's just all gone.
And then you build your deck around having like this bonus as an extra bonus.
Yeah.
I think this couldn't be printed today, as it wouldn't be major feel bad.
Yeah. Major feel bad.
Last card. I have something that will remind you of something that is also printed like 20 years after. It's called Caterpillar. And it costs 3G, is a 3/3, and you can tap it, permanently transform it into a 2/2 flying buff.
It's Delver of Secrets.
Yeah, it's a 4 mana 3/3 Delver of Secrets.
So the way it is named here, it actually transforms. So you would flip it, I guess.
Or you'd have 2 cards. Would it come with another card?
Or a token or something, or just mark it in some way?
Because I don't know if Wizards had the resources to print double face cards at the time.
In history of Magic, I can tell you, this card actually almost existed, which is a 3 mana 2/2, and you can sack it to make a 1 flyer, which is like a Mercadian Mass common.
Yeah.
But I think that it works well. So it kind of
made of the same material.
Kind of made first the token things happen, and then the idea of evolving and then transform.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's once again way ahead of his time.
Pretty revolutionary.
Very creative and chaotic. Speaking of chaotic, speaking of creative not gone so well, you know how there was very rare things like mythics, so things that you weren't supposed. He had 2 angles of the spectrum. Some of them you encounter and whoa, this is crazy. Some of them were supposed to purposely be not only bad but really weird, like conversation pieces. So I have a very rare artifact. It's Staff of Odin, because at the time, real world mythology seeped into the cards a lot.
Yeah.
It's Staff of Odin. It's a chaotic poly artifact that costs 20 mana. So if you got
of course it did
20 mana, you get an artifact that if you does nothing except if you pay 10, the game immediately ends in a tie. Judges everywhere and timers. This would have been a pain. Luckily, you can't really.
So 30 mana.
So if you pay 20, untap, and then pay 10, you tie.
I got it. That's what you need the additional lands for.
Oh! Yeah, Barry was setting up for his...
For Staff of Odin.
I can already envision the playtesting where they have like this, and there's like, Guys, I need 20 mana. How do we do this? Don't worry, I got you
I
covered.
got you.
I have a
7 mana creature. Yeah.
So you have the time.
That's actually hilarious. And we've even got something similar like these days, right? With Door to Nothingness.
But that one wins you the game.
Yeah, of
No
course.
problem.
I mean, at
You win
least
the
that-
game. This one, you shuffle up and go again.
Yeah.
Also, I find it really interesting that you have mono artifacts and then you have poly. Why is this a poly artifact? Connor, do you know what a poly artifact does?
An artifact that has a lot of partners.
Jamie, do you know what a poly artifact is?
You don't have to tap it to use it, right?
Do you know what a poly artifact does? Yes, you don't have to tap it to use it, which doesn't make sense because you don't tap it to use it anyway.
It's your turn.
I've got my final one is really funny to me. It's a chaotic sorcery once again. It's green, 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 blue, 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 blue. All players gain 100 life! Exclamation point.
I have Lifebringer. I gain more.
I love how he would
Wait,
probably.
exclamation point?
Yeah, I love how
Exclamation
they wrote
point.
that, and in playtesting, they're like, you know what? It doesn't feel the same.
So now, the thing is, at 8 mana, it's obviously a joke. You're not playing this in a tournament. But at 1 mana, every control deck would run it, right?
Yeah.
So at some point in between, there might be a balanced spot where,
Well,
I don't
Even
know.
at 2 mana, it'd be played.
Yeah.
Possibly 3. Maybe
possibly
even 4.
3.
But 6? No. 8?
8.
No.
8 all colored, obviously not.
put 4 blue in this.
Nobody knows why life gain is suddenly blue. I would understand green, white. But in general, I feel like all players gain 100 life is A+ chaotic energy, though.
Yeah, I mean, and they used this specific phrase. Where does it used, Carl?
Did each gain 100 life?
Yes. In the Ajani Ultimate.
Ajani's ultimate gives you 100 life.
Here's the story how I imagine it, right? So you're designing planeswalkers, and eventually you're like on the 100th emblem and ultimate and stuff, and then your designers are like, I have a problem. I don't know any ultimates.
Yeah, there's no interesting ultimates.
Wait, we still have various.
All that said that we keep on taking cards from.
So how about for ultimate you can move around your auras?
Wait, no,
Sounds a
tie
bit-
the game.
It sounds a bit bad. Wait, 100 life. That's what we're gonna do.
That's what we're gonna do, and that's what they went with.
All right, folks. If you like this, Barry designed a bunch of other cards. We can go back in the booster box and find some more for you guys. If you did like this, also please sub. It costs you nothing, and you find out more about Spectral Chaos cards and various magic facts from Toral. We hope you enjoyed.
And while you're here, make sure to activate Two-Factor Authentication on your Cardmarket account because it does keep your account and money safe.
See you guys in the next video.